Wellness Wednesday show
with Paul and Emma.
Was that the Wellness Wednesday show or the Oh dear.
Exactly.
I forgot to upload the new intro. Yeah, sorry. We will get there, I promise you. You know, by about episode 30, we will be there. Guaranteed. Okay. Sorry about that. So, anyway, this week we're talking about the sugar diet. My name's Paul, by the way. I'm the owner of Nutrient Nirvana, and my co-host
Emma Goodwin from Timeless Cookery.
Wonderful stuff. Now, I should have warned you about this prior to going on, but I did want to share a comment that we received. I think it's from episode 1. So I'm briefly going to share screen and read it out, and I'd like to know your thoughts at the end of it, Emma. Is that okay?
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, bear with me one moment. Just going to do some magic. Hopefully, if it works. Here we go. Well, hopefully now you'll be able to see that on your screen.
Oh my God, but it's so
Can
tiny. You're going to have to read
I
it
can
out
read
to me.
that, don't worry. I'll read it out to you, yes. So this comment came in from Marshall Abrahams, who's a good friend of mine and appears regularly on my History CV show. So she has said, "So sorry, I missed this from the beginning. There's been a huge impact on men's fertility from plastics and the contraceptive pill in the mains water supply, in addition to denatured soil and filthy so-called food made in factories and pushed onto a trusting and gullible public. There's also EMR, electrical interruption of our bodies from the main supply of electricity, and a whole lot of rubbish advice about fats, as you mentioned. Now, there was a report commissioned by Nestle or Kraft into vegetable fats and margarine, invented during the Second World War, and the information was skewed in favour of the factory-produced fats. A case of, oh, look what we've invented. Now let's invent a market for it. Eat butter for your brain. Calves liver or organic chicken livers are delicious, cooked in butter, and don't need soaking. We feel that the biggest expenditure should be on really good, clean food, organically grown. Help, I could go ranting on and on, but I better draw breath. Thank you both very much, and I look forward to the next one." So there we go. So I just thought I'd share that because it's a great comment, and that's the sort of thing we like.
It's lovely. It's lovely and long, and it makes sense, all of it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And she mentioned about the thing that Kellogg's, was it? No, it was Nestle, sorry, did in the Second World War. And I thought that was interesting that it just preceded the work that Ansel Keys did in the 1950s as well. So clearly there was an agenda going on here around that time in history.
It is hard to not think that there was an agenda. It's hard to not think there was an agenda. Canola oil was invented as a lubricant, I think, for engines to begin with.
That's right, yeah.
And
yeah,
diesel, Rudolf Diesel, inventor of the diesel engine, ran his engine on peanut oil. And then as he was going across some body of water, I forget where, to do something to do with patents or other, he went overboard. And then his blueprints ended up in the hands of the industrial, military, chemical corporation people. Yeah,
scary stuff. Just going back to the Second World War, do you know, obviously during the war everyone was rationed in this country, and that carried on until I think the sort of mid-1950s. But do you know what was the very last food group to be unrationed?
Are we talking about food groups as in
food groups is a little bit of a misleading term, actually, Emma, but it's how can I put it? I suppose it is a food group technically.
Flour.
And it's related to our topic tonight.
Sugar.
Sweets. Sweeties were the very last thing people were allowed.
Really?
Yes, which I find very interesting.
You know, originally sweeties would have been a way of delivering medicine. So, you know, a sour sweetie would have been a vitamin C hit made with sour fruits, you know, with a little bit of sugar so that you could tolerate the sourness. You know, it would have been a way of delivering herbal remedy. So you'd make a concoction where you'd take the goodness out of the herbs into a sugar solution, and that would be a way of preserving it into a sweetie. And gums and chewy things would have been made with collagen and gelatin. You know, they would have been actually medicines, sweeties, back in the day, originally, when they were originally conceived. Fruit leather and gums would have been ways of delivering medicine, definitely, 100%. We should bring that back, because it, you know, should be able to like chew on a sour fruit gum. Why not? You know, if it's made of good stuff.
That's a very good point, and I hadn't considered that actually. I thought maybe they were just holding back on the sweets, and at the very last moment, there you go, everyone, and people would just be like, "Bah, bah, 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 bah." But that was my theory. But I think your theory is much more considered than mine. So you're probably right. You're probably
Oh,
right.
you're probably right too. I don't know. Because what is this? Mutual Appreciation Society, is it?
No, not at all. No, I'm on the ginger beer tonight because we're talking about sugar. So I've ditched the fulvic minerals.
I'm on my mineral drink, which is made out of eggshells soaked in lemon juice and not castor oil. What I'm talking about? No. It's got tartar in it for my potassium and some bicarb and some lemon juice.
Wow, that's impressive. Did you know the what the RDA is for potassium? It's incredible.
Is it high? It's really high.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you would have to eat about 10 plates of salad a day just to meet the, you know, the RDA. No one's going to do that. So it makes me wonder, because it's a macro mineral, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not very good in supplement form. So people have to try and get it from food.
Or cream
And
of tartar.
sorry, I missed that.
Or cream of tartar, which
Okay, yeah.
is a waste product from winemaking, actually.
All right. Okay. I have to remember that. Well, anyway, so we're talking about today the sugar diet. Yes, you heard that right. The sugar diet. So I've been looking into it over the last couple of days. I must admit, I'm very skeptical about this. So the sugar diet is, broadly speaking, a diet low in protein, low in fat, and high in carbs. The sugars in this diet seem to come from a variety of different foods, with many people that I've seen on the diet consuming processed foods, sweets or candy, and foods that you and I, Emma, would always discourage. So the way I see it is the potential negative effects of this diet would be weight gain, risk of type 2 diabetes, rotting teeth, mood fluctuations, cognitive function disorders possibly, and heart disease. And I'm hoping that, you know, it's not a good idea, because I've just given jam donuts up. I'll have the right hump. I've done 2 weeks of cold turkey with jam donuts now. I mean, to be honest, I haven't really missed them at all. It's quite surprising. I think that's partly because I caught my belly in the mirror the other night. Oh, Christ. But I need to sort that out. And I have done. And I've lost quite a few pounds in the last 2 weeks because of it. So, because outside of that, I eat very well. But yeah, but that wasn't the best idea.
But the jam donuts are not good for you because they've got non-organic wheat flour, which is contaminated with microdoses of pesticides and herbicides and glyphosate, which is a mineral robber, and vegetable oils, which are totally utterly toxic. So that, I mean, you could have the jam and the sugar from the jam donut, but like the other ingredients just aren't worth it. It's probably got corn syrup and I don't know what in it, you know. God
knows, yeah. Right. But that's very interesting that you mentioned sugar there. So the sugar on a donut, excuse my cats, is okay, is it?
Well, so that was an interesting introduction, and you said you could see potential pitfalls. The first one was
weight gain. Now, but bizarrely, some people are saying, sorry.
People are losing weight on the sugar diet.
That's what I've seen, and it doesn't make any sense to me, because sugar makes you fat. That's what I've always thought. So how does that work?
Sugar with fat makes you fat. And now this goes against all of my GAPS things, because we do on GAPS, we do a juice that we call a GAPS shake. It's carrot, apple, some cabbage and cucumber, whatever. And then we put in a teaspoon or so of cultured cream, 24-hour fermented kefir or some kind of dairy ferment with fat in it, with the sugar, and we call that a GAPS shake, and that's like a mini gallbladder flush. So for me, saying absolutely no fats with your sugars. That's not a thing. I always say, if you're going to have a date, have it with some cream cheese. If you're going to have some honey, have it with some butter. I always say have them together, because they're just going to have 1-2 mouthfuls and you're satiated, instead of having a Mars bar or a caramel wafer or whatever. But what I've noticed with this sugar diet, which is quite new in America, it's big with people who have already been really serious about their health and tried lots of other diets. So they've often already been vegan and gone, well, that didn't work. I've already tried vegetarianism and gone, I'm not getting what I need. No, they've gone into paleo or keto, and or even if they've been very sick as a vegan, they've gone straight into carnivore, into the lion diet, eating just red meat and salts, just because they can't handle anything else and they're just desperate. So they've been carnivore for a while, or keto or paleo. Keto is very high fat, not so high protein, no sugars whatsoever. And paleo is similar, but a bit more starches and things. So these diets are mostly low carb. So the people who've been on them have already transformed their gut microbiome by starving out the pathogens, by stopping eating so much sugar. But sugar comes in lots of different forms. You know, there's starches, which are complex carbohydrates, and they take a lot of metabolizing, and your body uses up a lot of minerals in that process of metabolizing. So if you eat a lot of starchy carbs, you better make sure you be getting your minerals in somehow. Minerals usually come from animal products. And fruits and vegetables, but as we know, the soils are fairly depleted, and because the soils are depleted, the vegetables are depleted, because the veg and plants are depleted, then the animals are depleted. We're all depleted, right? We're all about 50% down on our minerals, and if you're not balancing your minerals and trying to get your mineral balance right, you could be in trouble these days, which is why you need to see Paul with his magnesium and other amazing things, and get your oyster max down, you'll get your beef liver down, you whatever. Get your stock down, get your ginger beer down.
If you're on the sugar diet, the ginger beer, stuff,
drink sodas. So what these guys, most of these guys, the proponents of the sugar diet, they've already been carnivore, and they're like, right, okay, I've got some belly fat, and I don't want belly fat or any kind of cellulite on my thighs. I'm already looking pretty fit, but I want to shift this last bit of fat. So to shift the fat, you need to not eat fat, so that your body starts to use your own fat reserves. So they get their metabolism racing by eating really high sugar. Now, some of them are saying, right, I need pure sugars. I need just fruit juices, freshly squeezed or whole fruits, because when you eat the whole fruit, you get the fiber and you get all the minerals as well that help you to metabolize it, right? So they're having fruit juices, they're having some granulated table sugar from an organic source, and they're having honey, right? And they're eating that during the day. So they would eat bananas, for instance, with table sugar on it. Bananas with table sugar on it, or honey for breakfast. And then watermelon and peaches and pineapple and for lunch. Fruit. And then in the evening, they have a piece of lean meat with some vegetables. All right, no fats. But some fats are going to creep in somewhere. Even if it says it's lean meat, there'll be a little bit of fat in there. So 5 to 10 to 15 grams of fat only per day. Now, for me as a GAPS coach, that's like, what? I would never suggest this diet for anyone who hadn't already done a lot of work on their gut health, and also who are exercising a lot, because these guys who are into the sugar diet are cyclists, professional cyclists, or bodybuilders, or people who work out 5 times a week, or they're not people who've been suffering from chronic fatigue, or who've had IBS, or are feeling low, or had metabolic disease, which I had for decades when I was younger, when my legs were like sausages. Don't know if I told that story, but yeah.
So that reminds me, funnily enough, not the sausages thing, the sugar thing, what you were just saying, it reminded me of what I told you last week about Jamie Vardy, the football player. He looks like Albert Steptoe, and him drinking. That's good. And I saw he used to drink 2 Red Bulls before going on the pitch and playing for 90 minutes, but it worked for him. So what we're saying then is, because I've noticed this week when I've been hunting around on this diet, I've noticed that the vast majority actually of people that are doing it are like weightlifters or bodybuilders like myself.
They're all They're already quite buff, aren't they?
Exactly. So, but refined sugars, really? White sugar? I just can't get my head around it.
What
Really
it's
can't.
doing is revving up their metabolism. So they start to
Mm.
burn their fuel in their furnace harder and faster. And there's a guy, can't remember his name now, but he's gone into the science of it a little bit, and it does make sense, but only if you haven't got leaky gut and if you haven't already got any chronic issues. If you've already got, if you've got, don't even go near the idea of this if you've got any kind of long-standing chronic something going on. What was the other second thing on your list that you said would
Risk of type 2 diabetes?
Right, type 2 diabetes. Well, apparently, if you're just doing fructose and glucose and no starches, it doesn't seem to be spiking people's insulin, which I find very interesting.
Okay.
I find that very interesting. So some people think that people are actually curing type 2 diabetes with a sugar diet. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I have heard people.
I think I've read that somewhere. So I can think of at least 3 or 4 different frugivores. I think that's what you call them, that I've had debates with, shall we say, on Facebook and places like that. So are you saying that I was wrong?
They don't eat protein in the evening, do they? Frugivores?
No, these people were literally living off fruit.
That's different.
Nothing else.
Veganism, and that's a frugivore, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that I think. Look, it's okay to do that for 4 or 5 days if you can do it, because it must take some hell of a lot of willpower and amazing control over your body to be able to just only eat fruit for that length of time. That'll be a proper cleanse, that will. Yeah, but not if you've got leaky gut, not if your gut microbiome is damaged, not if your mucosal membranes are damaged. It would cause you a lot of pain. If you had a duodenal ulcer or stomach ulcer, it would be a disaster to do that. So it's a tool for some people to use. What was the next thing on your list?
Rotting teeth.
Rotting teeth.
Yeah, sugar, rotting teeth.
Yes, because it's not the sugar in your mouth that rots your teeth. It's the sugar in your system that is using up all your minerals that rots your teeth.
Sorry, but if you've got cavities, surely if you're drinking too much of this stuff, then this is going to enter into the cavities, isn't it, and cause a problem?
Possibly, that wouldn't be very pleasant. But why do we get cavities in the first place? Because we're mineral deprived, we're mineral deficient. If your body builds your bones and your teeth of minerals.
So it doesn't. So sugar does not cause cavities. Is that what you're saying?
It does cause cavities, but it causes it not from the sugar being in your mouth and bacteria going in your mouth, and you have to brush the bacteria off with toothpaste or whatever. No, it's because the sugar is saturating your whole system. The starches, specifically potatoes and wheat and starchy carbs like that, are using up all your mineral reserves.
Yes.
And so then your body hasn't got enough minerals to metabolize the sugars. Where's your body going to get the minerals from to metabolize those sugars? It's going to rob them from your bones and from your teeth. That's where tooth decay comes from, and osteoporosis.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And just to remind everyone, fulvic minerals contain, I think it's around 80 different trace minerals, as well as vitamins, phytonutrients, amino acids. It's got the lot, so it's really, really good stuff.
And they're also, fulvic minerals are also a kind of binder and help you get rubbish out of your system as well.
Yes.
Win-win. Everyone should be on fulvic minerals.
Yeah, they take out all the metals and the toxins out of your cell, particularly because we've got 2 formulas now. We've got a cellular detox formula and a gut health formula. So the gut health one strengthens the lining of your gut, and the cellular detox, as you say, strips away all the rubbish out of the cells, which makes it far more doable for your body to take nutrients in at that level. Yeah. So really, as you say, it's a win-win.
You can't expect to eat a load of rubbish processed food and take fulvic minerals and be okay though.
No, I was trying to do that in a way with the jam donuts. Let's balance this out a little bit, Paul. Yeah. But bad move. Don't go there. Right. Gulag has said, this sounds like the diet for me. So that was, I think he made that comment early on. So what do you think now, Rich? Are you still thinking that way? Let me know. And we've had a message here, comment from Authentic Seeds. What a great name. Maybe this is why we now have sugar tax. They are trying to connect us into thinking natural sugar is bad and fillers with sweeteners like aspartame and what's it called, a calcifame K or something like that, another nasty one. But yeah, in my opinion, they're far worse than sugar, those artificial sweeteners.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that aspartame comes from a genetically modified form of E. coli. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
You're naturally predisposed to want sweetness in things. And
Yes.
mother's milk is 50% saturated fat, and then lots of sugars, and it tastes sweet, mother's milk. And of course, everyone makes a beeline for honey. We're naturally disposed, and if you actually have the mineral balance in your soil well sorted out, your vegetables will have a sweetness to them, and you can measure that with a Brix measuring device called a refractometer. And it's like a little telescope thing, and they use it in wine and beer making to measure the specific gravity of like the sugar content before they decide how much yeast they're going to put in or whatever. But if you take a few drops of, say, a piece of kale and squeeze it onto this device, and then you put a little lip down and you look through it, and it will give you a grade of like 12 Brix or something like that, and it will tell you, if you want to test whether your veg has good mineral content, you could just taste it. Does it taste sweet? That means it's got a good mineral content, but you can actually measure that with this device, a refractometer, as well.
That's very interesting. Did you do that? Because you used to have a small holding, Emma, didn't you? So did you regularly test your soil when you were doing that?
I didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't have the money to test my soil, but you can test soil by looking at which weeds like to grow. So buttercups like a really acidic soil. So that's just talking about acidity and pH. But you can tell if you've got too much richness and too much acidity in the soil, too much nitrogen, because the plants start growing really leafy and then they all go mildewy. So you need to rein it in a bit. I am a queen of compost making. I can always get my compost heap red hot. In fact, I've composted a whole sheep in my compost heap before.
Wow. Okay. I've always struggled a bit with that because, for example, with permaculture, where you're doing or employing the no dig method, you have to use an awful lot of compost, and I just don't produce that amount of compost.
Yeah, but no dig, and then you must mulch. No dig and then mulch. Mulch. What can you mulch with? Leaves, bracken, I don't know, mulch.
Cardboard. Yeah.
Cardboard, newspaper, shredded, whatever, just mulch. Anyway, we've gone off topic. What was on your next things with your sugar diet that you're
we've done rotten teeth, mood fluctuations.
Mood fluctuations, right. So I experimented last week with the sugar diet, and I thought, right, come on then, my gut's healthy enough, and I'm going to have a go at just having fruits during the day, and a lean piece of meat with some veg at night. And I love my butter and my fats and all of that jazz. So it was quite hard for me. And I noticed that I felt pretty good and I felt quite on it, but I got in the car to drive, and I was driving like a complete idiot. Like my coordination was off. I was in the wrong gear when I came to the corner. It's like I've driven this road 100 times. What's the matter with me? And I just didn't feel quite and I've been listening to quite a few of these people promoting the diet on YouTube, and most of them are they're just too slow for me. They're talking, and I'm like, come on then, spit it out. What are you going to say? Kind of. They don't seem to have all their synapses snapping. They might have a flat 6-pack, belly.
Yeah, but I guess that could be down to a multitude of different reasons. The screens, everyone's watching the screens all the time and things like that, which can, sort of affect your cognitive abilities.
I mean, I've noticed that the minute I was a gardener, as you say. I ran a community supported agriculture scheme for 10 years, and I was out in the garden with sort of plugged into source every single day and looking at the weather and sunshine, fresh air. And then in 2020, me and my husband split up. I left that project and I started the online business with Timeless Cookery, helping people with their gut health, and I was suddenly on the computer every day. My memory immediately suffered. My memory, usually it all flows out of me really easily. But I was typing away and I'd be like, what's that word? What's that word? Come on, Emma, what's that word? And it's the effect of the EMFs is shocking, actually.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I've noticed that a lot as well with myself and in my job. I'm actually getting quite cheesed off with it. I love my job, but I'm literally tied to the computer sometimes for like 10 hours a day, and I can see the sunshine outside, and I just, I naturally gravitate towards going outside. That's just who I am, and it is a problem. There's no doubt about it, but what can you do? It's very difficult, isn't it? I did say actually earlier on today that I try to go 1 hour first thing in the morning and at least 2 or 3 hours at the end of the night without having my phone on. I just have it switched off. So I think that helps a little bit, but it is a problem for lots of people.
Qigong's pretty good as well. Qigong, like barefoot on some grass somewhere, doing.
I did that yesterday. Yeah.
Opening up your shoulders after you've been sleeping and just breathing deep, and that's a cracker.
Yeah.
Getting you in the right mood in the morning.
I nearly burnt my feet doing it yesterday because it was so hot.
Oh, I nearly died yesterday.
Yeah, so humid. Yeah.
And then we've had thunderstorms all morning, which was fantastic. Anyway, we've gone off topic again.
All right. Yeah. So mood fluctuations we were talking about. The other two I mentioned were impaired cognitive function and heart disease.
Heart disease, I don't know. But impaired cognitive function, I struggle. What does that say from Lisa Lou?
Lisa Lou says, I don't use sweetener and I avoid at all costs. I would rather break my ketosis with real sugar rather than have that pap.
Absolutely.
Quite agree.
I love that word, pap.
Quite agree.
That's great. Yeah, too right.
There's all sorts of links to all sorts of nasty diseases with artificial sweeteners. I don't think we know the half of it yet.
Yeah, no. But sugar originally would have been under lock and key at the apothecary, and as I say, used to preserve medicines. And I think, to preserve the summer harvest of berries to make a jam, or with some gelatin to make a jelly. These are traditional foods that we should be able to include in our diet. And the only reason we say no sugars on GAPS is because we don't want to feed the pathogens in the broken microbiome. And the reason why there are pathogens there is because the low levels of antibiotics in the food system, or your pharmaceuticals that you've taken, or your painkillers that you've taken, or the antibiotics that you've taken, have killed off like half your gut bugs, half the diversity of the different kinds of gut bugs. And also we have preservatives in everything to keep the shelf life good, not to keep your life good, but to sort out the shelf life. And so eating processed stuff kills your microbiome, and that's why we say no sugars on GAPS. We can have honey, and carrots have got sugars in them, for heaven's sake. Dried fruits have got sugars in them, and fruit's got sugar. That's enough sugars. You don't need any more sugars than that. But this sugar diet is an interesting tool, I think, that if you're a bit of a biohacker and you like experimenting with your body, it's a tool that you could use. I've been thinking lately it'd be a good idea for me, who's been eating high animal fat and lots of proteins and lots of animal products for the last 15 years. It would be a good idea for me to go on a bit of a cleanse and maybe go raw vegan, for heaven's sake, for 2 weeks and see what happens. See how I feel.
Never thought I'd see the day.
Use it as a tool.
Wow, cool. Okay, that's very interesting. So you mentioned berries, I think, or fruit in the summer. Are you still saying don't eat raspberries, don't eat strawberries because they're high in oxalates? Or
I think that, seasonally and locally is the way. And if there are loads of raspberries, it's like, I'm not going to throw them away. But what I would do is cook them and then put them through a sieve to take out the seeds. And then I would make some kind of jelly, some kind of jam, some kind of fruit leather, I don't know, something like that. I love raspberries. They're divine. And I've got a pan of stewed cherries because there were so many cherries and they were so cheap. It was like €3 for a kilo. I was like, oh my God, give me the cherries. But I couldn't eat them all. They started to go off. So I just pitted them all yet last night when I was watching some YouTube thing about the sugar diet, and then cooked them up with some inulin, actually, which is very good for pancreatic function. And I got my inulin from my yacon that I grew last year. I must have had about 12 kilos of yacon. Have you heard of that? It's a tuber.
No.
It's from South America. It's a tuber. Looks a bit like a potato. And it's the same family as sunflowers and Jerusalem artichokes. It's got big leaves, and then it comes up with a tiny little yellow flower.
It sounds a bit like macaroon. Carry on.
Yeah, yes, probably same family, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, these big tubers, they're quite brittle and they snap, and they're really juicy inside and sweet. So peeled them, chucked them in a massive pan, boiled them down, and then put them through a jelly bag and took that liquid and then kept boiling it until it reduced into a kind of syrup. And that's very high in inulin, which is a kind of sugar, which we actually need. And, you know, if you're not eating any vegetables and fruits at all, where are you going to get your inulin from, which is really good for pancreatic function, for your pancreas to function properly. So we do need sugars.
Yep. Okay. Brilliant stuff. So just to summarize, just to return before we finish, going back to the sugar diet, in summary, what are we saying, Emma?
We're saying, you know, if you cut out any one of the 3 macronutrients, which are, I'm not talking about minerals here, I'm talking about the whole foods that we're eating. There's proteins from animal sources, and then there's sugars from starches, from grains, from fruits, from refined sugar even, and then there's fats. There's vegetable fats, there's animal fats. You know, we don't want the vegetables fats so much, but okay, we can have some extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, we can have some coconut oil, that's good vegetable oils, but mostly we want saturated animal fats. Anyway, if you cut out one of those macros, something's going to happen in your body, you know? So people are experimenting, and people who haven't eaten sugar for all that time are a bit sugar starved. You know, people who've been on keto, they haven't even had any honey. This is not GAPS, any of this. GAPS for me is always going to be the firm foundation for good health, because you can adapt it so many different ways. You can do a keto version of GAPS if you've got cancer. It helps a lot. You can do a no plant GAPS if you've got severe schizophrenia or any kind of mental health problems, or, you know, non-verbal autistic kids do very well on no plants at all for a little while. When I say a little while, it can be up to 2 years, 3 years even, you know. But so if you cut out any one of those macros, you know, something's going to happen. So what they're doing is cutting out all the fat on the sugar diet, because they've been eating really high fat. The body's already built of high fats because they've already been keto or carnivore for years and years and years. And so they're experimenting with it, and good luck to them if they're enjoying themselves. Do you know what I mean? It's a tool in our toolbox for biohacking ourselves. And they say they're losing fat, losing body fat. So they're getting ripped. I say human beings aren't supposed to look ripped like bodybuilders, or women aren't supposed to have flat stomachs with no fat on them. Women are supposed to jiggle a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Couldn't agree more. Anyway, right, okay. Let's finish on a couple of comments. That was a brilliant summary. Thank you. Right, no, we've done that one. Hold on. Next one. I might have to get my eyes tested. I've noticed recently I've been leaning towards the camera, the screen. Oh dear.
Get some of those pinhole glasses. Have you seen them? They're really good.
Yes, yeah, I know what you mean. Right, Lisa Lou, I do a little GAPS. I ferment low carb veg, sour cream, make raw milk yogurt for the kids. I do want to try fermenting fish next. Oh dear, blimey.
Go for it. No, just once you've made your yogurt, you strain it off, and so that you get some whey, and then strain it through a muslin or a jelly bag or whatever until you get some whey, and then put your wild salmon, wild caught keto salmon or whatever, whatever they call it, into a little glass dish with some whey and some dill, I don't know, some fennel seeds, whatever you like, whatever you fancy, and seal it and leave it on the side to ferment a little while. It's very good for you, fermented fish. I also put a tin of sardines, whole sardines in tomato sauce. I put a whole tin of sardines in tomato sauce in my kimchi when I'm making it, and mash it in so it's got fish sauce in it. You don't even know they're there, they disappear.
Oh, it sounds lovely. Let's finish with Rich or Gulag. We'll try and go for a carrot next time. I fancy something sweet.
You know what? Carrots and raisins with some fresh coconut is a really nice snack.
Really? Carrots and raisins?
Yeah, raisins and carrots together. And, you know, and also when I've been rendering my beef fat and I end up with a load of little crunchy fatty, yummy, salty, crispy things to nibble on. I'll have that maybe with some coconuts and carrots and raisins, just as, you know, finger nibbles. Yummy.
Okay. What are we going to talk about next week, Emma?
Shall we talk about, you know, acid reflux, GERD, stomach acid, you know, bile, all of those nasty substances that we need?
Brilliant. Okay, lots of people suffer with that, so that'll be something really good to talk about. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back, I think, at the next Wednesday at 6:30. I've got another interview on that day. We'll see what happens. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you need any supplements, organic herbs, non-toxic household products, I'm your man. Go over to nutrientnirvana.co.uk. Cheers, Emma.
And
And
I've just launched Instead of Bread, which is a really fun online course learning about how to cook things that are like bread as a vehicle for your butter or whatever, you know. And with that comes 4 coaching sessions. It's an absolute bargain. So head on over to timelesscookeryclub.com and check out my offer, because I can only help the first 30 people who sign up, and people are already signing up. And I'd love to work with you.
Okay, brilliant. Lovely. What a brilliant idea. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. See you next week. Cheers.